Coming up on the official Celtic FC podcast, we're joined by former Celtic midfielder Scott Allan as he looks back through his Hoops career.
The day that I came to sign and I walked into the change room and Charlie McGrew's like, "You're at the wrong side of the city."
And he shares some brilliant stories from his time inside the Celtic changing room.
Better put David Gwett on because he's French, you'll like that, you know. We'll drive in the car.
This is the official Celtic FC podcast.
Hey everyone, hi, welcome along to the official Celtic FC podcast, the only podcast out there where you can get exclusive content from inside the Celtic changing room. And in this episode, we're joined by a former Celtic player. But first of all, I'm Ryan Marr and I'll introduce my co-host for this one, Lewis Laird. Lewis, thanks very much for joining us, mate. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for welcoming me on. Third time now, so hat-trick ball incoming, I hope.
No worries. And yeah, as you can see alongside us, we've got a man that used to wear the green and white hoops for Celtic. Had one kind of proper full season here at the club, and Scott Allan. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Obviously, it's good to be on, kind of speak about things in my career, some good memories and obviously some ups and downs.
You're always a man. We were actually just kind of speaking off camera there, but you're always a man a lot of the time when we ask players at Celtic that used to play for us who was the funniest in the changing room. Your name gets brought up a lot. We mentioned, we're talking about Carlton Cole there. We know I'm sure Scott Brown said your name as well a couple of times in those sorts of instances. Yeah,
well, listen, it's obviously good to get on and have the kind of connections with boys, especially older ones, because I was with Carlton and Brunner's about 4 or 5 years between us, but during the times with Charlie McGrew as well, who we all know has got a lot of character, one of the best storytellers I've ever came across. So I've been around the guys and maybe picked up some bits here and there.
Yeah, well, we'll get into some more kind of dressing room stuff, and I'm sure we'll get some decent stories later on when we come to Celtic. But I want to just start and touching, because we're talking there about Carlton Cole, who we had in the podcast a couple of weeks or months ago now. It was brilliant. It was such a good laugh, and I asked him that question, who was the funniest in the changing room, and he said, Scotty. It was Scotty Allan, and he's saying, oh yeah, we're still in contact today. And I thought, it just seemed like such a strange marriage used to together, but I still talk to him.
Yeah, I still talk to him. Like I said before we came on, he'd messaged me looking for a restaurant in Glasgow. I think maybe about a year ago I was in London, met him for a coffee. Just, you see him obviously on the TV now, so he's went into the kind of punditry work, similar sort of stuff I've done over the last couple of years. And like I said, he might not have been what everybody wanted on the park, but off the park all the boys loved him.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, let's get into the career then. And Lewis, as we mentioned, signed for Celtic in 2015 in that summer window, but it all started at Dundee United, Scott. Yep. That's right. Came through the youth academy there, broke into the first team sort of 2011. What are your kind of initial memories of kind of your first start in football and coming through that academy there?
Well, it was Dundee United, but we had training bases in Glasgow, so during the week all the boys from Glasgow in the west would train in Glasgow, and the boys from Dundee would train at the park across the road from Tannadice called Gussie, and when it came to a game on a Sunday we would all meet up. So for us, as much as it was Dundee United, I was driving 20 minutes to the Firhill complex in Maryhill, and that was the first team that kind of wanted me. There was none of the Glasgow teams had kind of seen me at that point, so Dundee United's where it's all started, and obviously got really fond memories. But by the time I'd obviously got to the first team, it was like 6 games and I was away, which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Lewis, for yourself, because when did you kind of first start? You first started kind of coming to Celtic games. What kind of year would that have been?
See, I actually remember my first season ticket would have been the year Scott signed. It would have been one of the
Is that right? Okay.
Season, so
I was going to say, because that Dundee United team, because you're a little bit younger than I am, and I'm a little bit younger than you are, Scott, but that Dundee United team, kind of the early 2010, 2011, 2012, and for a good kind of period of time, it was a really strong team. I thought maybe you may have had some good memories of that.
Absolutely, I feel so. There was that sort of time as well. I think there was a period where we maybe played them 4 or 5 games in a row at one point.
Yeah.
We kept playing them the Scottish Cup. It was a great side with some really good players, coming through, and like Scott was in the academy. The academy's well renowned for players coming through. Some of them have obviously come here as well at Celtic. The likes of Guy Mackay-Steven and Stuart Armstrong. Those two in particular were very exciting in that team, you know. Still remember sort of skill compilations from Gary.
Every soccer game, every Saturday, wasn't it? That he'd be on it.
It used to be a thing though where guys were trying to go on that on a Saturday morning.
Really?
You know? Yeah, and I think Gary
Did you ever make it on there? Or?
Yeah, I'd made it on when I was at Portsmouth. I got it on. Even like guys like Johnny Russell, who was in that team as well. Like,
some career.
The one thing about Dundee United was there was a pathway, and when there's a pathway and there's a chance for you to train with the first team, if you took that chance, you would get an opportunity from the managers. And the guy who kind of involved me with the first team at first was Craig Levein, and a lot of people think Craig Levein has one style of playing football. Craig Levein liked how I played football. I was creative. I might not have been great defensively at the time, but he was more so what I could do on the ball. So Craig Levein's got a big part in the guys like Johnny Russell, Stuart Armstrong as well, who was in my youth team. He'd came from Inverness at 16 and adapted really well, probably because I was feeding him the ball all the time and scoring. But we had some very good players, and even guys who might not have made it there went elsewhere and had good careers. So the main thing was, and the reason why through my youth academy days I stayed at Dundee United, was if you kept progressing, you knew you would get an opportunity again in the first team.
Particularly those two guys, Gary Mackay-Steven and Stuart Armstrong, who of course then came to Celtic, and you played with them here as well. Could you tell in both of them straight away that there was a talent there, and they would probably end up going on to bigger things?
Well, Gaz had came on trial. Gary was on trial for about 3 months before Dundee United signed him. He played at Airdrie.
Liverpool before that?
Yeah, Liverpool, the academy, yeah. So he was on trial for a long time, but he had unbelievable one-on-one ability, and could maybe win you a game out of nothing. We Stu had great work ethic and time to run into the box. All the kind of things you see, he's really dynamic. And I think when you're a midfielder and you score goals, there's always a chance you can go on to bigger and better things. But there was guys after that, Gold as well, Suter. If Dundee United actually could have kept hold of the nucleus of that squad, they're a really good team.
Guys like Andy Robertson and stuff.
Andy Robertson as well.
Premier League team.
But Barry Douglas came for Queen's Park as well, went on to have a great career. But I just think Dundee United at that time just done it right, and there was a pathway, and that is the most important thing for players with ability coming through, because you can have all the ability, but if you don't get the opportunity, then you don't know what you can have in a player. Yeah,
were Stuart and Gary two of the quieter guys in the changing room though?
Stuart definitely was. Gary, because I think he's told a story on our podcast about when we were going through a McDonald's drive-through and we all got the mask on and drove away. Me, him, Johnny Russell, there was a car full of us, but there was 16, 17 of us living in the one house in Dundee.
Carnage.
That, when you talk about Dundee, you talk about football, but that in itself is, you leave home at 16 to go full time, and you're then suddenly in with 16 boys from all over the country. You know what I mean? There's stories I'd love to tell, but you can't tell. But it was a real learning experience. But the end product was boys went on to have good careers, and that's what Dundee United done at that point.
Because you mentioned there, didn't play too many games in the Dundee United first team, because later on in that season, the January time, I think you moved to West Brom. That's right. When you went to West Brom, kind of went out on some loan spells, went to Portsmouth, went to MK Dons, went to Birmingham, I think went to Portsmouth again as well. But what was that whole period like for you when you then left Dundee United to go to, because West Brom were a Premier League team at that point, weren't they?
Well, first and foremost, I didn't want to leave Dundee United at that point. I was kind of backed into a wall at that time, and the fans there'd been stuff in the press, and the fans had assumed that I had asked that, but it wasn't the case. I remember going in and saying I wanted to stay at Dundee United, but there was teams obviously sniffing about to sign me, and there's obviously money comes into it as well from the club's point of view, but I wanted to stay. That's all I'd known at that time. And before we even talk about that, when I was a young player all the way through Dundee United, I had never thought past Dundee United. My whole aim in football all the way through was just, can I get into Dundee United's first team? It wasn't, can I get in there and then go there? That was never the case until I started playing, and then other teams want to sign you. So I went from that was all I know to within 3-4 months from August I'm looking to move down to West Brom, which was a Premier League team, going from one sort of changing room, all Scottish boys, into a changing room where guys were in, out and their way back to their families, and there was only 2 of us who were under the age of 21 at that time. It was in the first team, so it was hard to adapt, but that's what you need to do sometimes in football.
Were there any kind of big names in that West Brom team at the time?
Not as much as other Premier League teams. We obviously had guys like Chris Brunt, Graham Dorans, James Morrison, who'd all kind of been international players. Jonas Olsson, who was at Sweden, really good players. And then in the second season, your Anelkas came in.
So did you play alongside him in training things?
Yeah, well, I used to drive into training. I used to drive Anelka into training, for about 6 weeks. And I remember when I was picking him up, he used to come off the lift, looked immaculate. And then I'd be thinking about what I was going to ask him because I didn't want to mess it up. But he was actually a really nice guy. I'm asking him about Zidane, Pirlo, or he must have thought, here we go again.
Was he asking about like Ryan Gold and stuff?
He was asking me what Dundee United was like. But that was a good experience. But it was Roy Hodgson was the manager. And the first kind of 2 months, the plan was always to go to West Brom and then go on loan to Portsmouth. That was always the plan because Michael Appleton had been the reserve manager at West Brom, so they had a wee thing there. But the first 6 weeks I was in all the match day squads, and going from a Scottish match day squad to then the Premiership, you're on these incredible buses, walking about London, staying in nice hotels, going to play Chelsea away and sitting on the bench with all these guys. It was definitely an eye opener. And then on to Portsmouth after that, and Portsmouth was one of the places where I'd played my best football, and I was happy. So that was an incredible club.
Yeah, I'm just still thinking about Anelka. I would be overthinking everything I'm doing. I'd be thinking, what type of car am I driving? What type of are you going to what would you been driving at that point when you had him? You were going
I had a Audi Q7 to be fair.
Right, okay.
I just passed his test, but I remember asking him, why have you not got your car? And that shows you the level he was at. He says, I couldn't drive these cars into West Brom, it's too flashy. And every other guy in the car park, by the way, have got incredible cars, so I can only imagine
what did he have out at his front door? Is it like Bugattis and all that? Ferrari. I'm not really into cars that much, so I couldn't tell you the exact words, but that I remember him saying that. I remember thinking, better put David Guetta on because he's French, he'll like that, you know. We're driving in the car. Did he like it?
He said he knew David Guetta, he's his pal.
See, that's the level you're talking about here. You're thinking, I'll put it on because he likes him, and then he's turning around going, actually my best mate's me and him.
Incredible.
Could I get you wee tickets to go see David Guetta somewhere now?
Well, that's what we were talking about, because I used to go on my holidays to Ibiza, so I used to ask him, "Have you been Ibiza?" And Ibiza, not for me.
That's amazing. That's probably the biggest name shout we've had in the podcast since we've been doing it this season. Nicolas Anelka, that's all right. So when you went on loan, spoke about like Portsmouth there, just with some of those deals, I wanted to talk about some of the players you played alongside. I know you were at MK Dons. It was only for a short period of time, but did you play with Dele Alli? Who was in that?
Dele Alli, Alan Smith. It was at Manchester United. One of the best trainers I've ever seen.
Really?
Incredible, really aggressive. And when you think before he scored the goals, you think just nice player, so aggressive, incredible mentality. You go back to Portsmouth, Canu was still there.
Oh yeah, I had that in my sheet.
Canu
what was he like?
Still there. Old, but could still juggle the ball. Who was it? There was a lot. Tal Ben Haim, who was very
Benjani and stuff.
Benjani, and that lovely guy Benjani. Hayden Mullins, who was captain of West Ham. A lot of players. And then Dele Alli was, I think he was 16. Played a couple of times together. I'm sure we were definitely in the squads and that. And they were always talking about him. They'd obviously went from Slaney to Dele Alli in the space of a year, you know what I mean? So it was, but he went on and done really well as well. So around the clubs, Birmingham, Jesse Lingard when he was coming through, Demary Gray. Remember Demary Gray? He wasn't meant to train with us, and he trained on the Friday, and he ran an absolute savvy, destroyed people, and next day on the bench came on, and then the next week he scored. And everybody that first day is like, that kid's incredible. Just with one day training session, getting in when somebody was injured. So there's a lot of players around that. Darren Ambrose, who was one of the Premier League players at the time, who used to score the 40-yarders. so many. Some I can't remember. Sometimes I'm watching games. I played with him.
Aye.
You forget. You know what I mean?
Canu especially, he must have been one of the most like skillful players you played alongside, but probably was he proper laid back as well?
Yeah, proper laid back off the part. But when we're talking about Alan Smith as well, with that little nasty side as well, Canu had that as well.
Yeah.
Aye, it was interesting for me because I was always about playing on the ball and that, and then seeing Alan Smith and guys like Canu who are really super aggressive in training. You know what I mean? So it was an eye opener.
Yeah, was another name in that list that Birmingham City played alongside, and Paul Caddis.
Mm-hmm. Paul Caddis, yeah.
Yeah. what was he like to be in a dressing room with? He was a big player for Birmingham then, wasn't he?
Aye, well, Caddis scored the goal, right?
Kept
him up. Chris Buck was there. There was a lot of. I remember a funny story. In fact, we played Leicester away. And we lost a goal in the last minute. It was 2-1, and came in the change room after it. So you've got myself who'd played in the SPFL, Caddy, Chris Buck, Andrew Shinney and Peter Lovenkrands, all Scottish-based players who'd played in the league, and Lee Clark saying, I think the boy Shinney had missed a chance. He went, "Yeah, you're not in the Walt Disney League now." And all the Scottish took proper offence. The next day he got made to apologise for it. You know what I mean? Because there was about half the team had played in Scotland at some point. But and then a couple of years later, I'm at Rugby Park with the Celtic, and there's Lee Clark standing around the touch there. He's like, "Welcome to the Walt Disney League."
How did you take that?
He just laughed. He was fine. But I'll never really forget that.
I've listened to interviews with Paul Caddis before, and he's really
good player, by the way.
Yeah,
Paul Caddis,
brilliant, and such a big player for Birmingham in his whole time there, and I think he ended up captaining the club as well, didn't he?
Aye.
But even just stuff like, I remember hearing a story from him himself talking about like how much he hates pre-season and he hated training, and he's like, he just doesn't see a point in it and stuff. Like, was he like that when you were with him as well?
Yeah, he was like that. I don't think he was mad for the food we were meant to be eating either. His go-to was Chinese.
I think there's been a few stories about
the Gregs in the bag and that going to pre-match.
Well, so he'd be on the bus and having a wee sly Gregs in with him?
But see in fairness, Ben Foster, when we were at West Brom going to games, he would always have like 2 packs of Monster Munch.
Really?
So like people just have things that work for them sometimes. So like, wasn't it the first time I've seen something like that? Me myself, like, being a diabetic, I had my dextrose tablets and a couple of digestive biscuits, so there's nothing too good for me, you know. But I've seen that. I've seen a lot of strange things guys eat, but that's maybe because they've got that wee thing where I think, if I don't eat that, I'm not going to play well today, because a lot of people are superstitious in football.
I think probably though a lot of times, I don't know what you think with it, Lewis, as well, that we probably like over hype like how much, like obviously you guys are all professional in terms of footballers and stuff, but we probably all think it's just like perfect diets here, like nobody drinks, all this type of stuff, but that's not the case at all, is it? Like everyone has like their sweets and their treats and all that type of stuff as well, don't they?
Yeah, well you want to earn them first, you know.
Yeah,
so
of course.
maybe after a good win or something you can go in. I remember when I was at Celtic and I was going to Marks and Spencer's, I'll have a Coke Zero. Then you think that everybody was looking in the shopping trolley, and like it's, at times you shouldn't be drinking that, because people do that, you know what I mean? So it gets a bit in your head, so you're like, right, if it's busy, I'll get lots of water, all the fruit, and then I'll maybe go to the quieter time and I'll put my sweeties in that, my Percy pigs in that.
With the basket and just cover all this like
well planned out.
Yeah. So I suppose after all that time in England, then well, it was probably the best chance we got to see Scott back in action when he came up to Hibs, and that was a cracking Hibs team, wasn't it? That one.
Yeah, it was a really sort of competitive league that as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you've some of the teams here, and it was unbelievable. I think that was the sort of time that BT Sport were showing those games as well.
Yeah.
You know, it was the Friday night you'd see the championship games and stuff, and it was a really exciting league. And that Hibs team obviously went on to sort of win trophies as well, and ended up coming back up to the Premiership. But it was really exciting. Yeah,
it was like you came into Hibs, they were in the Championship at the time, but it was, you know, yourselves, Hearts, Rangers, Falkirk, Livingston, like probably the most competitive Championship season ever. But it seemed like with your Hibs team, you just absolutely just loved playing football. Like it seemed to just be such a joy every time you played.
After November, the first 3 months before that was, I remember going to Alloa, roasting day, beat 3-0, going, this isn't going well. I was sat on the bench for the first, a lot of the games at the first 6 weeks. Took me a while to get going, and then it was actually Livingston away, and it just clicked. And see, once we clicked, that was us, the football. See, if we'd got a good start, we would have probably come up automatically that year. but it took us a while to get going because, bearing at the time, Hibs was in a bit of a sticky situation at that time. We were just bringing players in for a lot of players had left, been relegated, which obviously after I think it was Hamilton at the time who had defeated them in the playoff game, which went down really badly with the fans. So we kind of were the team that gave them the love back, maybe, I think. And like you said, we got Dylan on loan, Dylan McGee on loan from Celtic. Time he came in was an incredible player for us. And Stubbs, he just gave us a freedom to go and play, and that's what we've done. And that gained us getting the fans back into the stadium.
What was Alan Stubbs like as a manager? Because we knew him here at Celtic for being this kind of big no nonsense defender and stuff. What was it like as a manager? Did he still have that kind of no nonsense side to him as well?
Yeah, but I think once he got the kind of football he was looking for, and he gave you that freedom, and then he was all smiling. That's one thing I'll say about Stubbs. You didn't really see him in a bad mood a lot of the time. He'd very positive, and that probably had its effect on the players on the park as well. He did a really good assistant and a guy called John Deila with him as well. So the two of them really good for all. And we had a lot of young players at the time, and players like myself who were looking to kick on again after having struggling for maybe a couple of years to find form or whatever. So a lot of boys have got a lot to thank him for in terms of for what he done for that Hibs team.
Yeah, because Lewis, that season for Scott in particular, I think finished as Player of the Year that year in the Championship. I mean, he was absolutely flying, which then led to the summer of speculation, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's quite big. Do you think, just to with a manager like Alan Stubbs and a player like yourself, do you think having that freedom is sort of good to playing at a side like that and just enjoy your football?
Yeah, I think. Listen, I think now you can play in a structure, but you still, when you're attacking, if you sometimes need to come out with that structure to maybe create the moments of magic which we actually ended up doing as a team. So I would say that the managers would have had that bit of freedom have delivered for. The ones where it's more so do this in terms of the defensive structure, you might not have the same impact. So yeah, for me at that time, and don't get me wrong, see, when you're playing well and you are creating, you kind of earn that right to have a bit of freedom. That's what I would say.
So that summer then, 2015, you've absolutely been flying with Hibs, and I think you've still got a year left in your contract at Hibs, but then all speculation starts about where you might be playing your football there after that. You end up coming to Celtic, but of course it seemed like it was a bit of a tug of war for quite a period of time. Just talk us through what that summer was like for you, because I imagine with your head just a bit all over the place with everything that was going on.
Yeah, it was a great summer, and my boy was being born as well at the same time, so it was actually a really hard time in my life, that, to be fair, because all the speculation, a lot of online abuse, which is, listen, it's part and parcel, I think, at the time, and especially in this city at times. So I took all that on board. My son was born, so with a lot of juggle, and I was still only 23 at the time, so it was hard, but it was just every day was different at that point, and because I had such a good time at Hibs, it was hard as well,
Yeah, it was like it just felt like it was like an endless cycle that summer. Like every day, all the newspapers were filled with your name about what was happening. Of course, it ends up coming to Celtic as well. But like, did you have to try and just ignore everything that was going on? Like, how did you try and keep yourself sane when it was just your name constantly being speculated?
I actually think I hardly left the house that summer.
Really?
To be honest, I hardly left the house, and then I basically couldn't wait for pre-season to start. So I was driving through to Edinburgh, get my training, stay at the training ground as long as possible, and then back to the house and get the kind of feet up. But every time you left the house, where you going? Which, listen, I get it's in a city like Glasgow where football fuels everything. That's part and parcel, but it wasn't easy. But eventually, when everything got over the line, it was a chance to kind of get back to the football again.
I feel so that's a side maybe you don't think about as a supporter. 23-year-old, still with all this speculation surrounding you're coming into a summer with clubs looking at you, don't even consider the sort of pressures that they could face sometimes. Yeah.
Was there stuff for you during that time, Scott, where it's a struggle, clearly, from what you're saying? Would people reach out to you for support? Was there anything there for you? I'm just thinking now for footballers, because as you're saying, Lewis, maybe it's something we don't actually appreciate or see. Is there any of that?
No, I wouldn't have said at that time, no. You obviously get the people you trust round about you, and you speak to them, but a lot of the time, because I was from Glasgow, I wouldn't really want to put that pressure on, say, my family. So I was just, I'm fine. But you obviously, every time you go to your bed at night, you're thinking, where am I going here? What's going to happen? Am I going to be at Hibs? Am I going to be elsewhere? But you get through it, and I got through it, and I'm a stronger person for it. So I can't. It was hard at the time, but it's a valuable experience for going forward, for sure.
Yeah. So when it eventually comes to pass that Celtic put in the bid and Celtic want you, what's your thoughts thinking at that point then?
Just because of what went on previously, I was like, this is a real pickle here, to be honest. And even the negotiations and that went on a while, because Hibs didn't want to lose me, because Hibs were wanting to get back into the SPFL at the time, and taken away from it. It's again, I've been at Dundee United for 6 months away. I've went to Hibs, start loving my football, been there a year, team wants you to go again, and the competitor in you wants to play at the highest level as possible, so you go, right, I need to test myself again, because it's a short career. And that's when it comes down to decisions like that, it's the competitor in you wanting to play at the highest level and test yourself that kind of rules ahead.
Yeah, so then when you eventually come in, when was your first day then? When did it all kind of get absolutely finalised? Was it kind of later on in the window? Yeah,
it was in August.
Yeah.
It was in August. I'm sure there was a couple of games had been played, because I'd played for Hibs. I'd played Dumbarton, I think, on the Saturday, and we drew. I think it was John McGinn's debut as well for Hibs, yeah. And then I think that week, that was when it kind of finalised. And the day that I came to sign, and I walked into the change room, and Charlie McGrew's like, "You're at the wrong side of the city," or that type of part. And I'm like, "Oh my God, here we go."
Here we go.
But when I went into that change room, the boys were amazing with me. Guys like Charlie, Bruni, we were really tight during that time at Celtic. And Dylan, who was then back on loan, so I had a lot of people, Stuarty, Gary Mackay, Stephen. So it wasn't like you were walking into the unknown. So that helps you settle more.
But see, even you're talking about that whole speculation during the summer and how confusing a period it was. When you then come into the club, you're then going to have to sit down and do the press conferences for the first time. You're here holding the scarf, and you're getting all the questions as well about the whole summer as well. Was that, did everything just go up another level again with that sort of the scrutiny and the eyes and the media on you?
Yeah, it did. And obviously we're not even at the football part yet. That's the thing. So I remember, to be fair, the Sky reporter who had done it with Luke Shanley, massive Hibs fan, he was gutted, but I had a good relationship with him, so I think he could maybe have done me in a couple of times with the questions, but he didn't. You know what I mean? He asked the questions that were there to be asked, and we got through that day. And for me, it was just about then trying to go in the park and seeing how I was going to do.
What were your first impressions then of coming in, going into Lennoxtown, working under Ronny, Deila, being with all these new teammates as well?
Yeah, listen, you know, things have went up, not just a level, at least a few levels, obviously coming from the Scottish Championship. So you're going from playing Dumbarton to then hoping to make the Champions League group stages at the time, so you get guys like Van Dijk and that, they're incredible, you know, so I was really looking forward to it, but I believed at the time that I could make a difference, and I was just real excitement at the time, to be honest.
But did Ronny speak to you before you signed about what he maybe wanted for you, or maybe when you first went in?
I've came to learn in football that the guys will say anything to get you in the door, you know what I mean? So that's hindsight's a beautiful thing. But I had a good relationship with Ronny Deila when I first played. He played me on the left hand side, where I'd been more central for Hibs, but I was still managing to get assists in games and coming off the bench and having impacts in some games, but I didn't quite get that run of games that I would maybe look for to really show fans and see if I was good enough to play at the level.
I always wonder as well, like, it's the same really for, you know, if any of us, if we go and get a new job or something, that first day you always get those nerves before you go in for the first time. You overthink things, what am I going to wear, what am I going to do, blah blah blah.
I can only imagine walking into that changing room as well.
Well, exactly, I know.
The first person to speak to you is Charlie.
But see, things like that though, that makes you settle quickly, because it's that kind of Glaswegian patter that he's got, and I could relate to. But I think there's sometimes if you ask players, see in the first day you think somebody's took control of your legs, you can't control the ball because you're there, and you think everybody's thinking that, you know what I mean? But it's not always like that, because why am I doing that? I would never do that.
But in those first impressions probably count so much, because see if you do go in and you have a shocker of a training session the first one, people are probably looking around going, who is this guy?
I know, I've seen that a lot of the time though. A guy's the first day, what have he signed, and then give him a time, couple of weeks to settle, couple of months to settle, and they turn it around. It's not easy. See, from a young age, going and playing with new players, you've always got that. That doesn't change as you get older.
Yeah. So when you came in, that your debut was actually against Dundee United away.
Yeah.
It's quite funny how these things happen, isn't it?
I know, incredible. It's funny, there's a boy who's at Larne with me now, Joe Thompson. He also made his debut that day. Always reminds me, I made his debut same day as you. Cal McGregor played that day as well. Dundee United, you see walking in up the stairs and then into the away room, and you've got a Celtic top on, you're playing against the team you'd been at for 10 years. You couldn't write it probably.
Yeah. How was the how were the Dundee United fans when you made your debut for Celtic?
You couldn't hear them. You couldn't hear them that day, to be honest.
It was a 3-1 victory in that one, and then you started playing a couple of games, and I think got an injury towards the start of the season as well. It must have been so frustrating getting an injury at such an early point of your career at Celtic, when you really want to go and kick on. Yeah,
you obviously go in with all the exuberance and wanting to show people, but I say that, I think in football sometimes you just need a wee bit of luck here and there, but I managed to get back fit, and like I said, at that time I think it was Malmo away. I travelled, I didn't make the bench that day, but travelled, and that was a huge disappointment for us that season. But then managed to get fit again. I had a few appearances in the Europa League at the time, so I was getting experiences that I wasn't getting before that. I was, like I said, I was in the Scottish Championship, so it was a whirlwind at the time.
Yeah, because you came back in, I think, like from November through to the February time. You were kind of pretty consistent with at least kind of coming off the bench and making an impact as well. Lewis, you were mentioning it was the first time you had a season ticket for Celtic. What have you got any memories of Scott or of that team or of that season at all?
Just don't mention the Ajax game at the last minute.
Actually, I mentioned it to you earlier. I don't know why in my head. I remember you played. It was a goal against Inverness. It's a nice wee exchange. I don't know why it's in my head. There's a wee exchange. I think. I can't remember. If it
was that the goal that Carlton Cole scored the overhead kick?
The one at home, I think. Ryan Christie's involved and stuff. I don't know why that goal was in my head when I mentioned it to you earlier, but I mean, playing a part in that Carlton Cole goal must be up there. That's one of the best goals, surely.
Amazing.
That we were talking to Carlton about that as well, and to be fair to him, he just laughs at it.
That's
now,
what he calls him. That's the way he is.
That's the thing. See, like with VAR now, that goal wouldn't have stood because it comes off his hand. That VAR ruining football for moments like that in the game. It's an absolute, it's an absolute joke. I suppose that season in general, Scott, it's a kind of a strange one, really, because we win the league, we had the disappointment in the cups as well with going out. I think we lost to Ross County in one of the semi-finals, didn't we? And then of course Ronny Deila leaves at the end of the season as well. But how did you find it when you were in there during that season? Because Ronny Deila in the first campaign, everything seemed to be going really well. We were wanting to play really good football, and I think we kind of took that into the second one as well. But maybe just didn't really reach those heights again from what he did in the first season.
No, I think I'm sure we had a good few injuries in that season as well. You had guys like Chris Commons as well, who was really influential in the season before that, who had real quality and was in and out. I think he actually went to Hibs on loan in that same season, but was still in training, a really good player. So there was a big squad, and when you've got that big a squad, it is hard to keep everybody happy. But I think Aberdeen ran as close that season. I think Bruni missed a good chunk of that season as well. Same as Charlie, who are leaders on the park, which you need. But there was boys like myself. I think Ryan Christie came in at that time as well. Stuart and Gary, who were Scottish boys, you know what I mean, and it was kind of new to us who were wanting to be successful. So as much as it might not have been as fluent as you want, there was guys there who were getting a lot of experience in Scottish players as well.
Yeah. So how did you find it for yourself then, personally? When you came in, was mentioned there, you kind of started to get a bit more of a run of things through from the November through to the February time.
I was overall I was frustrated in the season because I was one game I would come on at left hand side and then the right hand side, and it was in, out and out, and like I said, I think you don't really know unless you get a run of 4 or 5 games how you're going to cope, and if you can get into that rhythm, it takes 5-6 games sometimes for a lot of players to really get going. I never quite got that, so that was the frustrating part for me.
Yeah.
At the time.
Are there any moments kind of for you though in that season that stand out? Let's mention that kind of Inverness game, but is there anything that stands out, or overall for you was it just a bit of a frustration in not getting that run of games?
Yeah, just not getting the run of games, obviously getting to playing in the group stages, like in away to Fenerbahce for instance. That was probably a highlight. The Ajax game was up until the 90th minute when pickpocketed the edge of the box. So listen, it's kind of things that shape you. So there's no regrets in terms of that way, but just a lot of learning in it. Yeah.
So at the end of that season, Ronny Deila, he announced he's leaving just before the end, and then we get all the excitement that Brendan's coming in as manager as well. Did you feel like for yourself that was potentially going to be an opportunity where you could show yourself, because you know Brendan, an attack-minded player, you're an attack-minded coach, you're an attack-minded player, looked like that was something that maybe could have worked?
Yeah, well, initially when Brendan came in, we had lots of chats. The chats were really positive. I had quite a good pre-season that summer as well, and I think because I was in and out the season previous, and Stubbsy's phoned me at Rotherham and come play in the Championship. If you're not playing there, come play here and then go back next year, and you've got 46 games in your. And it all sounds well and good at the time when somebody phones you, and it got to the first game of the season and I wasn't involved, and I'm thinking, right, I need to go and play in that. And it's a footballer and you just want to play games. I've got Stubbsy phoning saying you come down here and play in the Championship. It's not going as well as you'd expected, but it's still early. But you think, I need to go and play. And in hindsight, that season was the season where I should have stayed and just kept working away. And then I feel that I would have got an opportunity that season if I had done that. But I was just itching to get out and play football. When somebody's phoning you all the time, you think the Championship.
It's difficult, isn't it? You know, it's funny. Hindsight's just a wonderful thing in football and in life with things like that. Do you think that one of those that if maybe you did stay, you would have had more of an opportunity to
I think
play
so,
for Celtic?
There was a few injuries at the time, and there was guys in similar positions to me who had been promoted and got a chance. So I think if I had stayed and kept working away at it, there would have been. I think Brendan would have gave me an opportunity at some point. But I remember in fact when we were asking to go, he wasn't wanting me to go. He thought that I should have stayed, but I'm first game, I'm not playing, I need to go. I need to go somewhere.
It's probably such a difficult one, I think, at that stage of your career as well. You just,
you're now 20, coming up for 24 at that time, so, and a bit of broken career before that in terms of in, out, run of games, not run of games. It's you just want to get that full season under your belt. That's the thing.
I mean, that season for Celtic, that 16-17 season, I think like we'll all remember it for what it was, Invincible Treble, and just being this absolute sensation with Brendan coming in.
The funny thing about it, I remember we were over in Slovenia in pre-season, so we're in groups. It's me, Bruni, I think Gary Mackay, Stephen and someone else, I can't remember, might be KT. We're on groups and we've got a sheet of paper with all Celtic's records on it and most goals scored, and I remember us kind of, right, what do you think ones are that you could do, like go the whole season unbeaten? And naturally when you see that, you know, the full season unbeaten. And we're all sitting there, right, we'll go for that. Most goals ever scored in a season type of thing. We'll go for it anyway. And I think there was 2 or 3 things that were on the sheet that had said records that they actually broke that year, the boys. So it wasn't like it hadn't been spoke about. And people think sometimes football clubs you don't speak about things. We had the sheet of paper, or he was wanting to break records. That's a fact. He did, and that was in the July.
Yeah, was that just a bit of genius?
When the first time he had us all in the palm of his hand, there's no question about that, and the team really reacted to that. There's no question, and that season was obviously incredible.
It was not like when his first day. Did he not have like a team meeting? We had this like amazing PowerPoint, and he gave you all like a kind of booklet of like. So what was in that booklet?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. That's the secret.
Let's give you Anakin's away now, I know.
That's what I'm saying. Just subconsciously putting things in guys' heads, and it can work sometimes, and it definitely did that season.
Yeah. Before we're going to finish off talking about Celtic, I just wanted to talk about like some of the individual players specifically that you played alongside, just to see, you talked about Charlie and how he welcomed you on your first day. Was Charlie was he one of the main leaders in that changing room then?
Yeah, Charlie and Bruni, obviously they had been there for a long time. I think everybody, when you hear Charlie, just the way he tells stories, had everybody hooked. Like sitting at lunch and everybody be around the table, the way he says the story is completely different from how I would probably tell the story. But I think in terms of on the pitch, Callum McGregor, I've said this before, so I remember coming in and I'd played against Cal in youth team games and that, and thought, oh, good player. Wasn't it until I'd seen him in the first team environment, and you actually get to see the full ability playing at that. We're obviously better players than you are playing at youth team, and I remember Celtic fans would say to me, Callum McGregor left mid, he's not that great or that type of thing. I says, Callum McGregor could be the best player in there. That's what I used to say even at that early stage, because in training we had a relationship, we'd bounce the ball with each other, I'd give and go, he could score, finishing both feet, and I'm not surprised that he's been on to be Celtic captain, whereas at that time some people would have been surprised, whereas I wasn't for the moment I kind of seen him train and play. I was really impressed.
Yeah, that first season as well would have been obviously the year Kieran Tierney came through. Your first season,
Kieran Tierney as well, just all action. That's what he was at the time. But Cal McGregor's the one that would stand out for me most, because I think at the time I don't quite think the fans maybe knew what they had until he got given that chance and he started scoring the big goals.
Was that as well? You mentioned that sort of loan spell at Rotherham. Like you seen maybe Callum having that in Notts County, so you see that as an example. Maybe that's just the thing you can go on and do from a loan spell.
The only thing is at Rotherham we were bottom of the league for the whole season. So it's hard.
Yeah. So that's the ups and downs of being a youth player and coming through at a club like Celtic, because I remember when Callum first broke in and he was absolutely flying, scoring goals pretty much in every single game. And then maybe have a little bit of a dip, which is just natural as a young player.
Of course.
And then maybe people being a little bit unsure of him, but then to have that ability to then kick on again and go for it and doing what he's doing now is just sensational. But you just always saw that from the moment you kind of set eyes on him.
Yeah, in the first team environment, and that's my point when we talk about pathways for kids coming through. You can have a kid who's incredible in the youth teams and the academy, but in the first team environment, with the pressure when you walk out, when you make a mistake in front of fans, they might not react the same way. You put ones in and they do react, and the adrenaline gives them even more kind of confidence in themselves, and I feel like that was the case with Cal. Like I said, I'd played against him youth team, really nice on the ball, but it wasn't until you see him in the real environment you go, he was tremendous, to be honest. Really.
Someone else you mentioned earlier on, and I know you wouldn't have had too long to have played alongside him, but Virgil van Dijk, what was he like? Because he just
it was I think by that time it was getting a bit too easy for him. And I remember in the small sided games in training, he'd step in, arm out, so you just take an elbow off the nose and then he'd stick one in the top bins because he could finish as well. So I think I got about 6 weeks maybe with him, and incredible. And like you say, the guys go on to play in Champions League finals and be successful. So, and at that time Celtic had got players in who went on from Celtic and done really well. Yeah,
I mean, did you ever get the ball off of Virgil then, if you were ever going up against him?
If he wanted you to have the ball, then maybe give it, but he was, like I said, I think by that time he was looking to go to the
What was he like off the park as well? Because he seems like such a kind of just cool and calm guy.
Yeah, big chilled guy, come into the change room, morning boys, just not every... The thing about a team is all different personalities make it. You've got your Charlies, Bruni, myself, who were your typical maybe Scottish boys come in loud, like a bit of banter, and then you get guys like Virgil from Holland who come in and just go about their business quietly, and incredible. That's what makes a team, all different personalities.
Yeah. So then you talked about going out on loan to Rotherham. You came back from that again, kind of more loan spells. Went to Dundee, went to Hibs as well. Was that always the plan when you came back? Did you feel like the opportunity had maybe gone a little bit?
I felt after the Rotherham situation, I felt that the chance had probably gone. But then when I managed to get back to Hibs under under Neil Lennon, and it was then me, John McGinn and Dylan playing midfield, and the football was of a high level, to be fair. And I think we went a 13-14 game we hadn't been beaten. I felt after that, because even at the times when I was playing for Hibs, like Brendan would text me after I'd maybe got an assist or a goal, and we'd always kind of keep in touch. I still talk to Brendan to this day. That's the funny thing, even though he didn't play me. So he did keep in contact. So I thought when I went back after that season, the 6 month spell at Hibs, even though at the time I'm thinking maybe I need to go permanent now because I'm not going to get that opportunity. But bear in mind, you're coming back to a team who's went the full season previously invincible, so it's not easy. Tom Rogic is scoring every single game, you know what I mean? So there's sometimes there's not much you can do, and that's just football.
Yeah, that Hibs team again, though, as you mentioned, was, I remember them coming here, and it was, I don't know if you were there at the time, but I think it was a 2-each draw, and it was like just two teams just like going at it against each other. It was just brilliant to watch. It seemed like such a fun team to be a part of. What was Neil Lennon like, I suppose, and what did he do that made that team so kind of special for Hibs?
We talk again about the freedom on the ball. He was very much like that, especially for that Hibs team. And he has a presence, doesn't he? But before a game, he had us fired up. I think we all kind of showed that we played for him, and winning games gives you that confidence. The same with our manager. We were going out and we knew if we played we would win. If we played the way that we all know we would win, and he did create that, because training was of a high level, and the players we were bringing in were of a really good level as well. And I think that would be, for many Hibs fans, some of the best football they've seen any Hibs team play. And me myself, when you've got John McGinn who's like having an extra man in there, I was getting all the time in the world. He was driving past two guys, I'd peel off, he'd lay the ball to me, I'd play a wee through ball and buzzing, you know what I mean? But McGinn's doing all the groundwork.
He's sensational, isn't he? I mean, there's no surprise. I mean, captain of Aston Villa, could end up going for a title charge or something this season potentially.
But that was another one, until you play with a player. Once I had played with John, that was when he was going to Aston Villa, he's the most suited player to English football maybe I've played with, and knew he would be successful, and he's really showed that.
Biggest backside and football.
Best. It's an art, that as well.
It's Van Dijk's elbows, but then you've got John McGinn.
I suppose with Neil Lennon at that time as well as manager, you seem to have such a good group of players, as you were talking about, and Neil managed to pull something together to make it really quite special at Hibs. And I think even from Neil's time here at Celtic as well, and the same with your Hibs team, he's always seemed to, the bigger the game, you always seem to rise to it. Remember, the game here at Celtic Park, you would win at Ibrox, you'd win derby games as well. Was there anything that he would do in particular in those games? Was it just a case of getting you fired up?
Just fired up.
Yeah.
Just fired up.
Does anything ever come to mind when you...
I remember going to away to Ibrox. It was actually my first game for Hibs, and I had just had Neil McCann at Dundee, and Neil was really good in terms of how he wanted the team to shape up, but completely different from how Neil Lennon was. And we've got the tactics board up in the pre-match, and he walks in, and the tactics were basically throws, kicks the tactics board. They say tactics isn't going to win you the game of the day, like bravery and get on the ball and win your battle. We or a bit of a difference. I'm expecting we're going to be going to drop in, blah blah blah, away to Rangers obviously. We were down to bare bones with injuries all over the place. I think Brandon Barker came off after 20 minutes, and Martin Boyle went to right back, and the guys were just filling in all. We ended up winning the game, but that kind of stuck out for me. I'm just launching the tactics board and saying that ain't going to win the game today. But and rightly so, we came away with 3 points that day.
Did you ever get the hairdryer?
I didn't, but
you saw others?
I didn't. I seen McGinn, obviously. The one that a lot of people have heard is when he said to McGinn that you're not even the best player in your house. You know what I mean? That's a good one. £10 million? No, look at that one. But we would all be like, biting our hands, you know what I mean? Because you knew it was coming.
But you don't want to get eye contact with him when you're doing that.
But I actually didn't get any hairdryer treatment. But I was playing well at the time, but I didn't get much off him.
Another guy that you played with at Hibs that played with Celtic, Effie Ambrose.
Effie.
What was Effie like away from the park?
Oh, amazing guy. Yeah. I think anybody who kind of comes in contact with, if you really like him as a person, always smiling, and see that sometimes the guys that come in and just smile and don't take everything with heavy shoulders and that, they're the positive influences in the group, whether they're playing or they're not playing. He was definitely one of them.
One of my favourite FA moments when he was at Celtic, and I think it was after we beat Barcelona. I remember just like sitting all night, like scrolling through Twitter and stuff, just like trying to relive everything. And then someone had posted a picture of like FA in the queue for bamboo or something like that, and he's full Celtic trackie. I'm like, oh, brilliant, that's amazing. I hope he got in.
Nah, he would have got in that.
So yeah, I mean, you left Celtic and you joined Hibs permanently.
Yep.
That right in 2019, and then from there you're now playing over in Larne in Northern Ireland. So how's things going for you there?
Well, I'm injured at the moment, but what I would say about Larne is, when I spoke to them this summer, they've got a guy who's come in, and a guy called Kenny Bruce, who's wanting to take that club places and put a lot of his own money into that club, and that they're moving in the right direction. I couldn't believe how good it was when I went over there.
There's a few Scottish boys over there as well now, isn't there?
Yeah, Sean Vaughan, Andrew Ryan, who was at Hamilton, but what they're actually trying to get in places would be on a par with any clubs over the SPFL. That's right. They're really trying to kind of break into Europe, maybe Conference League type of level, but I've been really impressed. Training ground, and the staff, the people there are really good people. Manager Tiernan Lynch, who, like, we're averaging 600-700 passes a game, you know what I mean, but people wouldn't know it because they don't watch a lot of it over here. But he's really good, and down to the physio is one of the best physios I've ever worked with. He's 29 years of age, and get, like, what they've got in place is going to allow them to kind of kick on as a club, and I think maybe give the investment in that league, which it probably needs now. Yeah,
and hopefully the exciting thing for Celtic fans in the future is there's another Allan in at Celtic at the moment.
Yeah, well, my son's he's in at the academy, and he's progressing well just now, but it's a long road. It's not easy.
What type of dad are you with him when you're going to the games?
What type of dad? It depends how he plays. No, listen, I think it's when obviously I know things that have kept me in and out of teams when I've been older, so I just try to get as many good habits in him from a young age as possible, and if he's good enough, he's good enough. If not, then you still, whether you make it or not in football, you still learn a lot of good skills, you meet good people, social skills, so many, a discipline as well. That's the way I'm kind of looking at it.
Are you a shouter at the sideline though?
Well, what does that mean though? Are you shouting the right thing or the wrong thing? I think I shout the right things, but if I'm shouting, I'm only shouting to help him. That's what I would say.
Yeah, okay. You're not one of those dads that's just screaming at the ref and stuff after
No, I wouldn't even shout at a ref in my own game, so no, I'm not a ref guy. I'm there for all the kids.
Yeah. Well, hopefully in the next however many years there might be another Allan and pulling in the green and white in the first team. That'd be pretty good. Scott, just to finish off on, it's been great going through all of that, but I just want to finish off on some like teammates questions from your time at Celtic, if you're good with that. So we've got a list here. We might be other stuff we come up with as well as we go along, but first of all, I mean, I think maybe we know the answer is, came out to mention already, but who's the funniest teammate during your time at Celtic? Who's the prankster?
Charlie by far. I would say Charlie McGrew.
Anything come to mind?
Just half the things you can't really say.
Would it be like every day pretty much you'd be doing something, or would they pick and choose?
Even like just something that might not be that funny, but the way he says it, it's funny. They type of people, that's the way he would make it funny. Like Charlie and the Hugh and that, who were the kit men at the time. Hugh and Stevie, like, that was good banter at the time, you know what I mean? He'd drive Stevie mental. But just the way he said things. I remember like the way Brownie's hair is now. I remember saying to Brian, you just keep your hair like that. Can he keep my hair like that? He says, I need to have the baldy. And Charlie would be in, he'd bald it, kidding on it. I'd be kidding on him, washing the face, and we'd spray the face over, the hair's all over the gaff, and Brownie's get the half mohawk all the way around. And he was like that, like, as much as like, guys like Scott Brown, who some of the most down to earth people I've ever met. And people wouldn't know that unless you know the guy, you know what I mean?
Would anyone ever get Charlie back though?
No, it wasn't that type of changing room. It was kind of just see when it wasn't like the old school pranks. It's more the storytelling.
Right, okay.
And the stories I can't really tell because they're on
You see that
podcast.
in like other podcasts he does as well, like some of the
The
stories.
way he
tells,
says it,
Yeah. Let's try to take some more on here.
Yeah, best player on training. You said, I think we know.
Best player on training. I would say Callum McGregor.
Yeah.
Not that'd be an easy one for me to say. I would say Callum McGregor.
Just always standing out, even from a young age.
Just standards, finishing, work ethic, gym after training. Just I'm not surprised he's now the captain. Put it that way.
Yeah. Who'd be the one guy that you wouldn't want to mess with? Would be like the hard man in the team back then. It's with Bruni on the park, wasn't it? But then you just said off the park he's.
That's a good question. That.
Carlton Cole.
No, he's a big friendly giant, Carlton. No,
really.
Nobody really off the park. I think like I says, Bruno on the park was combative, but he was a good footballer as well. There was more to him than just.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know what I mean. So, I probably couldn't answer that question off the top of my head. I wouldn't know what to mess with because the guys could all hold their own.
Yeah. Okay. Lewis.
Most likely to be fined. I'm sure there's probably a long fine list.
Effie Ambrose.
Really?
Was there anything particular?
All the time.
Late.
Yeah.
I was going to say, was there a particular
That's
fine?
an easy one.
Would it just become like accepted?
It was the same at Hibs. Like there was our
Really?
time, then there was Effie's time. You know what I mean?
Would
We'd
the
all be
manager
driving.
say?
Well, me, Dylan, and John, and that would be driving from Glasgow, and so would Effie. But we'd be there an hour before Effie, and Effie would say there's traffic. But he's driving at a later time where there's no traffic. So there was our time and there was Effie's time.
Amazing. Did he get fined for it though?
Yeah, he did. And he would pay it. But
who would be the best in a night out?
Best on a night out.
Who do you think would bring the party, bring the fun?
Cal's funny on a night out.
Yeah?
Cal's funny. Bruni as well. We went a few holidays. Really, really funny. So I'd say Callum Bruni.
Yeah, good dressing in that then.
Really
yeah.
good.
I'm sure you've probably seen a few outfits on that night. So who do you think the worst dress sense?
Oh, worst dress sense. Could be Effie again.
He's turning late and he's in a shocking outfits.
Stuart used to wear really studenty gear. So Stuart used to have like a nice shirt, and then he'd have like he'd have like sports trainers like the Ultra Boost and that one that we'd all be wearing at the gym. You know what I mean? But worst dress, maybe Chris Commons. In fact, remember Tom's? Remember them?
Yeah.
We went to Dubai and he came down. We were going to the beach club and Chris Commons came down with the Tom's on.
I don't think I've seen a pair of them in forever.
And bearing in mind, like Chris Commons is like a massive calf, so the Toms look tiny on him. You know what I mean?
I don't even know why people would wear them. Don't even look comfy at all. Like
No.
it's just like you're not even wearing it.
No, I'm going to say Chris Commons based on when we're going to that beach club.
Who was the double one here? Who was the most and the least intelligent? Who do you want in a pub quiz and who would you not want? I mean, you maybe do some of the service here.
Stuart would be up there.
Yeah.
Intelligent, least intelligent could be KT on that. In terms of general knowledge quiz. Now, if you're asked a Celtic quiz, you'd probably do that. I'd say Stu most intelligent. KT probably.
Yeah.
Least at the time.
Last one, Liz.
Maybe touched on a wee bit player that surprised you the most.
Surprised me that like I said, it was Cal at the time.
Yeah, what a player. I was. What about one player I actually wanted to ask you about was because when you came in, Tom Rodgers, that was kind of his first season where he really kind of started to kind of kick on a wee bit. Was he someone that surprised you at all when you went in about his technique and what he could do?
No, I'd seen bits of Tom Rodgers. It was like because in training, like he would just float through training. It was more the fact that I think he judged players in terms of the big games, and that's my pals that played for other teams said when you're trying to press him, he's that big. He's got size 12 feet, so he'd get all the ricochets in his favour. He'd turn guys. He could go both ways. So Tom Rodgers was top draw. I'd say purely based on the big games. He was always there.
Yeah.
But in terms of training every day, Cal, I would pick Cal.
Yeah. Well, Scott, that kind of wraps everything up. I suppose, like you kind of mentioned there earlier on, that your time at Celtic, I know you would have wanted to achieve more, but when you kind of look back in that and you think of the memories and the teammates and the stories, how do you kind of reflect on everything?
Yeah, like I said, it when obviously health wise I've went through quite a lot in the last few years with the heart stuff and the diabetes all at once, so I can look back at my career and be happy that I've had all the memories and been good enough to get through it. That's the main thing. So football's a game I've been up and down, and I've had a lot of really good ups. You know what I mean?
Is that giving you a different perspective on things?
Yeah, definitely. I think when that, like I'm saying, some people will look back and say, no, you should have done this, you should have that. I says, listen, I feel like I'm lucky to kind of had the career I've had, considering what I've went through. So I'm grateful for all the kind of memories.
Because for a lot of the stuff, talking about type 1 diabetes and the heart situation a few years ago when you were at Hibs as well, and I suppose for a lot of people you're probably a real shining light to people out there that are maybe going through similar things, that you can go on and have this career. Is that something that weighs on you at all as well?
Yeah, well, I've also done a lot of work with Diabetes UK for the young kids, because when I grew up there wasn't a lot of diabetics you could look to, apart from Danny McGrain, who had played a long time, and I ended up really close with Danny. I'd got him one of the sensors that I wear, and I remember telling him first, you need to get one of these, and his daughter actually wrote me a message a few years ago saying thanks very much for making my dad get one of these. It's made his diabetes even better. So because Danny's a hard guy to get, he stuck in his ways sometimes, but I had a really good relationship with him. But obviously with the connection with the diabetes, and used to ask him questions. But listen, when I look back, I say I'm fortunate that I've had a good career in terms of mine. Maybe not as good or where I wanted to be, but I can't grumble.
I think that's a good place to leave it, Scott. Thank you so much for coming in and joining us in the podcast. Really appreciate it, Lewis. Thank you for joining us as well, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you at Celtic Park sometime in the future.
Thank you.